Welcome to the Gnostic Rebellion. Today we're speaking with Dr. Joshua Pritikin, author of a wonderfully interesting book that deals with a core theme here at the Gnostic Rebellion and the Gnostic book that deals with I'm sorry, and the Gnostic Church of Light. Religion Unburdened by Belief is the name of the book. We'll introduce him in a moment, but you'll find immediately below this video, in the description, you'll find a link for our donation button at uh, PayPal, and this program supports the Gnostic Church of Light. It's an historic building, and we invite you to become part of our historic congregation. We're the first fully owned and operating Gnostic church on the continents of the Americas, and your donations are tax deductible. While you do that, we'll extend this blessing. May wisdom and divine providence increase the unique genius of our congregation and bring us to health, wealth, and increase of days. Okay. Having earned his PhD in psychometrics in quantitative psychology from the University of Virginia, Dr. Joshua Pritikin, during his academic career, contributed to 10 peer reviewed publications and now maintains a practice in White City, Oregon. He runs Estrella Counseling and holds a level 3 certification with the IFS Institute, which perhaps we'll talk about a little bit later. But it is his book, Religion Unburdened by Belief, that brings us here today. Okay, where I wanted to go is in trying to talk about something in accord with this, because obviously what I was just describing was accompanying the rigidity of mind and thought with clarity of mind in thinking. The probationer, the first entry grade to our order. The probationer signs an oath that he's going to examine. I forget how the oath goes for a probationer. He's going to examine somehow the elemental positions of things that happen to him. He's going to examine them in some way. He promises to do that. He promises to speak nice, or not nicely, but openly of the AA, so little as he might understand. He may not even be corrected if he's way wrong. So he's given that freedom, and he's told that he can resign at any time he wants. Just send a letter of resignation, and it's over. Now he's given this major exercise. He's told he has to memorize the first of our holy books that he will encounter. And I'm using he as an easy pronoun, ladies.
Sure.
And this first holy book, Liber 65, is a dialogue called the Gnostic dialogue between the adept and his holy guardian angel. And it's 5 chapters, very, very long chapter. It's 5 chapters with the perspective of the holy guardian angel from the 5 elements: fire, water, air, earth, and spirit. And he has to study the book well enough to choose one chapter and that he prefers. Be able to choose one chapter he prefers, and then he has to memorize that chapter. First verse of my chapter, I can't even remember the whole of it. I am the heart, and the snake is entwined about the invisible core of the mind. Rise, O my snake, it is now is the hour of the hooded and holy. Okay, well, we're not going to get that on spontaneity today. And he's given visualization exercises to develop the skill to see that image in the mind. Some call it astral projection. And it would be akin to taking a psychedelic substance, because you're getting a vision, but you're getting that vision quite naturally through focused intent, and you're looking for that, just to show us that you can think visually. It's all you're trying to prove here. And so, you've got to honestly report whether you can or cannot master that skill. And there's a dialogue going on now with the teacher that gets established. The next grade, the neophyte, starts to take that visualization practice and goes into, first of all, the second holy book, Liber 7, and he picks a
Well,
chapter.
hold on, Paul. Can I
Uh,
pause you there? Like the fight. I'm trying to remember what the person is called. The
Probationer.
probationer. Um,
He's
so
probationing for entry.
okay, sure. So so the test is like what did you say at the end?
The
It's like that
test is
so you
very
have to
singular. He has to recite his chapter.
memorize.
He has to
Okay,
memorize the chapter
memorize and
word for
recite it.
word. A couple of stumbles wouldn't hurt, but if he's stumbling all over the place, fuck it. And the teacher reads the holy book manually while it's being recited. So if he does stumble over a word, he's immediately corrected because we're not supposed
Okay.
to see so much of the style of the letter in any of the holy books. So they can't be
Yeah.
rewritten slowly over years.
Okay. So I mean that's a um so
What
that
are
you're
we bringing?
using sorry?
What are we bringing into that now? By having them read and memorize a holy, what is going on there that's not answered by Varela Schwartz or the internal family system?
No, I was going to put it in Varela Short's terms. So the candidate, no, what'd you call? I can't remember the name.
He's a probation.
Probationer,
He's on probation.
probationer,
No, he's trying to get
right?
in, right? He's probation. He's knocking at the door.
Okay, so the probationer is basically self-reporting. That's what you do when you're reciting something that's memorized. Is um, you're self-reporting. So that's first person outward stance, and the evaluator is in a second person outward stance, maybe in consultation with the book that they're reading. So there may be some inner part which is good at reading, which is so they're reconciling the what's being read against what they're hearing from their
Like
probationer.
an actor, it may be easy to memorize lines, multiple lines, right? So you can memorize lines without them being internalized at all, except maybe temporarily, right? I'm going to act on film. I got to do this line just today. I got this, speech, right? So you
Yeah.
could do that. But of course, you're having a dialogue with your teacher over that year of probation. And
Mm.
he should be experiencing he should be having certain internal experiences that can be mutually identifiable in the same way we're talking about with the orgasm example.
Well, okay, wait.
Well, remember I said I can
We
tell you about an orgasm and you would understand me, right? So I'm the student talking to
oh,
my teacher and I'm having an internal experience with the chapter I'm memorizing. And
I
it's
see.
kind of
Okay,
blowing
so
my mind.
the teacher is just familiar with the having studied the chapter themselves. They're familiar with the effects of there's like psychological impact of understanding that chapter, and they're sensitive to that. So that's what you're calling attention
I
to
know what
is that.
it's like to take that shortcut to school. You got to go down those dark woods and a couple of shadows pop out. Sometimes the bully's there in the morning. I know that route. Okay. But
Yeah,
if you get
yeah.
to this side, my buddy's there and he'll give you a hamburger. Um, Probably on Tuesday.
Okay, and so we're looking at the Gnostic path that is part of your church, and looking at it from the Brother Short's perspective. Is that right?
Well, you are.
Okay, right. Yeah, I am.
Not
So maybe go to the
using
next.
royalty, you know what I'm saying?
So if you want to go to the next, I think we covered this one. So maybe we could look at the next step.
Okay. In the next step, the neophyte, the one who's newly admitted, newly planted, um, now takes that visualization exercise and turns it into astral projection. He's given 44 symbols and sigils, we call them. And he has to scry them. He has to ride that sigil. And that sigil is going to inform him of things about himself, different parts of himself, different motivations, different fragments of his psyche. And he's going to write down those experiences in his diary. And we'll talk about them too. I'll help him with scrying techniques through, I think the minimum is 9 months for neophyte. I'll talk to him about, being fooled by the spirits, not properly engaging, what he could have done to make this a little more meaningful. Give him some guidance along the side, and he goes back and he continues his progress. He's memorizing now a chapter of a new holy book, Liber 7, and he's got other exercises and evaluations and other parts of the platform. I don't remember the neophyte oath all off the top of my head, but he's going to work on these certain aspects of himself also, and develop these qualities, just like the we spoke of the automatic consciousness of the zealot, which is the next step above the neophyte. I kind of came in with that. The probationer, well, rather the neophyte is building his pantacle, his first magic weapon for his altar. And the pantacle is a symbol. He's going to develop a symbol that's unique to himself to represent the entire universe and inscribe that on the pantacle. And that's got to be approved by the teacher. So we're going to have a whole series of spiritual ideas on what the universe is, spiritual discussion. And then he has to learn to interpret every experience he has as an experience coming into his pantacle. It's coming into his magical circle as the probation. He's learning to put out negative energies and keep the energies he wants inside a circle. Inside that circle, he keeps getting more and more rituals added on until he's developing a sense of holiness inside that circle. And he's opening himself up to holiness and learning to receive a light from above, so to speak. Now he's really doing serious internal work, because he's also, as a zealoter, now on his third chapter of memorization, and there's even a path through the holy books, right? And that can come up for discussion. We can see all of that in synchronicities going on in his daily life at each grade. I can remember as a zealotor, I was flying by myself to San Francisco, and first time vacationing by myself. And I thought I could be really bored and end up in my motel room, right? So I brought 6 books with me. I read one there and one back in each flight, but these were by a man called Kenneth Grant, and they were like a direct student of Crowley, who founded the AA. But I wouldn't put him on too much of a pedestal. He wrote some really good stuff, and he wrote some really bad stuff, just ridiculous stuff. His weakness became obvious, but the experiences that he was describing at these 3 grades were blowing me away, because it was almost like he was reading from my diaries. And at this point, I had no spiritual instructor. I was kind of on my own. It'll be a little while before I found someone else to carry me a little further down the road.
But you could really relate to what was in the books, like that. It resonated, yeah, for you. Yeah.
Oh, really? And so what I'm trying to get to overall, because that obviously continues on and gets a little more intense at higher grades, but I think I've made my point by example. And that shows another aspect to spiritual pursuit, to walking the spiritual path. that is above and beyond psychological, although we can argue that that astral projection is indeed very psychological. But we're dealing with aspects of the soul that have no moral relevance. And I mean that
Okay.
both morality and as morale, productive,
Mhm.
on a human scale.
Y- yeah, I mean, this is it's really outside of my expertise. Like uh, I'm just listening, fascinated as you describe the sequence and the challenges that the probationer and the uh, what's it called in the zealot are facing, and in
But
yeah,
this
and
is the teaching of our order, not of the church.
mhm,
The church kind of starts you off in a similar way, and we do recommend study of the Holy Ghost. But if you were coming to me in the church, and I would immediately regard you as a well-educated, balanced person, uh, I might ask you now, what is your genius? And you might be a bit younger, maybe you're still in college yet, you haven't really thought fully through what your educational program will be, and or maybe you're not in college at all. You've graduated high school and you're trying to figure out where to go next in the world. And I might say, well, where is your genius? What is your genius? And you might not be able to answer that. But we might start talking about your childhood as I get to know you a little bit. And, inadvertently, you might say, I was really into model building and I had my erector set and, all this stuff. And I'd say, have you thought of, well, real example, the guy that works behind the counter at the auto parts store fancies himself that he if he had his choice, he would have become a weatherman. He would have become, what do you call those people? The professional sounding word for guessing the weather. Meteorologist. He would have become a meteorologist, but
okay.
he felt as a young kid, he felt he didn't have the math skill, so he didn't pursue it. And I would say by example here that he couldn't face the world and do that. It was an uncertain future. Would he make Channel 7 News? You know, um, and taking the safe way, his wife is a court clerk, mucho bucks, real good benefits. You know what I'm saying? His working class job is with that. You know what I'm saying? He's the one that runs home and grabs the kids, and it works out for him, and he's very happy with himself and happy with his life. Um, but deep down, because he's French, and I say, the French hate everybody, and he knows I say this. French hate everybody. Their only virtue is that they also hate themselves. Um, and he says, "Yeah, I hate myself." Um, and of course he would really, because he should have been a weatherman. That was
Mm,
following his genius. What genius is there? Okay, he knows cars really well, and he can talk to clients on the phone and recommend they take this part for their broken, 1992 Volvo, right? And it's kind of amazing to me that these guys really know these parts and the history of these cars and the history of the parts so well.
okay. Right.
You know, somebody once said to me, being a mechanic is like being a doctor. You're figuring out a problem and the car can't talk to you. Um, and there's something to that. It might be an exaggeration in the comparison, but so we want you to find your genius in the church, and that really is in our order. The knowledge and conversation of thine holy guardian angel, if it would be, because remember, I won't qualify the holy guardian angel for you. It could be anything. You know what I'm saying? It could be the rose that blooms every April side of the house. You know what I'm saying? It could be your shoelace, as they say in AA, right? Or our order is called the AA, so that's kind of funny. Um, or it could be a direct experience, that feels preternatural and is archetypal.
Right. Okay. So I want to just grant your point, PJ, like that. Like that's really a gap in my book is that um, there could be uh, other important factors to nurture self-development besides firmness that yeah I don't really cover and like um, that's a gap like that that I don't address and that you're poking at. So I grant you
I don't
that.
say that you don't address it. You don't give, you address it inadvertently. You don't give exercises for that.
Right. So firmness is like I think firmness is a important thing to recognize because it's like a um, it's a behavioral way of testing or measuring unblending ability or whether you can stay unblended. Um, so like that's why I'm excited about it. But I grant that there may be other practices or um, approaches to self-development that are also important besides firmness.
Well, yes, and at the same time, I could see you as genius. Now flip back to our order as opposed to our church, and at the
Okay.
same time, I could see um, you coming out as an adept giving instruction, and you might put firmness as um, a testing condition for entry into the order. In other words, without this firmness, without having laid this platform, you know, uh, we can't use you. We can't help you. We're not going to give you that. That we expect. Those are the tools we expect you to come with.
Hmm.
And I think that's what makes this ring a bell for me. I'm not going to go so far as to now suddenly add this in, but I could see maybe in the future thinking more and more about this. And uh, I've been through, over the years, I've been through probably closing in on 300 probationers.
Hmm.
Okay. I got little more than a handful that made it. So you're at something like a 99 point something percent failure rate. And, it usually starts with, I got to memorize that. Um, but often they don't have the education they think they have. Um, and being the wry character that I am, we used to have a student college where we get them instructed on different religious systems that they understand them. And, I just said, I don't even want to do that for them. They should come well read. They should have, read the great American authors, some of the great European authors. They should understand the humanities in various ways. You don't have to be an expert philosopher and be able to quote Hegel, but you should have an understanding of what the Western mystery tradition is after, right? We expect you to come with those tools. So I'll let them sign the oath of probation, or even if it helps them to make an idiot out of themselves, because I just don't care, because I know most of them are going to fail anyway. Right? I'll give them all my time. I'll try to make friends with them. You know, and hopefully by the time I get to somebody who's a zealotor, and this has happened, we do start to become friends. And I think that's real spiritual mastery at a subtle level. Because I stopped being your master except in name. And we
So
start
when you
traveling.
say friends, it's more like more of a peer relationship. That's what you're getting at.
Oh, deep, deep friends. Picture
Yeah,
the two monks walking miles together between monasteries. Don't they
sure.
become quite intimate in their travel? Right?
Yeah.
So you become heartfelt friends with anybody that you're exposed to on a regular. process. Especially, another sign of spiritual intelligence should be that idea of impersonal universal love, the agape, right? And so you should have a love for humanity and the world, and you want to see its benefit. You know, I of course try to warn people that get away from morality. That doesn't mean you're suddenly a peacenik, and you want love, because you could be all pro-war and realize that that may be for the benefit of humanity. Your opinion may not be my opinion, right? And we could have a philosophically different approach to understanding that includes spirituality. I'm a dualist, and you may find that the whole dualist argument is undue. You're a monist, and you may find that we're all trying to get back to the one. And every time I mock the source, fuck me. Or you're just a nihilist, and this is all bullshit anyway. So this spirituality is great. As I look at the pages of chapter 6, as I told you before, the death experience, the dissolution of the boundary of the self.
Yeah.
That's high spiritual experience. That's getting to that ego-centered Tifereth, in between the Ruach, right? That's getting to that ego-centered, the pure will, and being able to apprehend its motivations, the heart and center of your being. Again, the chapter is trying to recite to you, I am the heart, and the snake is entwined about the invisible center of the mind. It is now as the hour of the hooded and holy ineffable flower. Rise, O my snake, into brilliance of bloom on the corpse of Osiris afloat in the tomb. Rise, O my snake, as the brilliance of years. Oh, well, I lost it. But I got a little bit more of it. So, I grabbed this quote from chapter 6. One possibility is that empathy functions as a belief-enabled ability. I made a side note, death quickly gets back to morality. It's a sentimentalism there. Sympathy and empathy, those are the feelings of sentimentalism. We say that what is it? Empathy is the vice of kings. Because when I have empathy or pity for you, I'm putting myself above you. And
yeah, you might be. I mean, I'm not sure. Pity for sure, but I'm not sure about empathy and empathy and compassion don't need to be hierarchical that way. But pity, yes.
Okay, yeah, and probably more my slip of the tongue. Yes, so sympathy and empathy. Well, sympathy is like pity, but empathy at least. Empathy is my acknowledging that you're going through inside of my own experience. That I feel you, like the kids talk today. I feel you.
Yeah.
And psychedelics are really a near-death experience. We could compare and contrast that to the astral projection I was talking about before, and the visionary experiences, right? So I would simply suggest there that you take the firmness, and after that's measured to some degree, and I don't think it should need but so much, and you could determine that. Then now take the indulgence, because they would have the firm foundation to let themselves indulge in the vision itself and begin to enjoy that. Right? They prove they can handle.
Okay. Yeah, but PJ, like, you don't really have to plan that as like a separate thing, because like it just accidentally happens at these works that sometimes you're served more than you can handle, and then you're in the you have to
Sometimes you
step
serve
out
more
from
than
them.
you can handle on both counts, the patient and the clinician, because either he's giving you throwing so much shit at you that it could be assaulting even. Or he's been assaulted in the vision, and he's having a tough time of it too.
Oh, wait. You talking about the server's state of mind now?
Well, I was getting at what you were laughing at, right? That sometimes you can get thrown so much. You don't really need to have to go in. I didn't really need to say to you that you need to let him talk about his experience. He's going to come at you with it anyway, right? That's what you were saying.
Well, okay, I'm not. Maybe I could just
I
say it
just
again to
I,
make
I
sure.
went off and you took me out of the room for 20 minutes, right? And I came back in and I was fine and this and all that. And then at our next session, our next private session, I went back, man, those 20 minutes were like the best 20 minutes of my life. Gabriel himself came down and said, "Hey, I got $5."
Okay, but
Um,
that's all fine, except you don't have to report your experience. Like that can just be your
Keep it
private near
private.
death experience. Yeah.
But you're saying, and you said in therapy, the way you laughed, it seemed that plenty of them come at you. Got to tell you about
Oh. Yeah. I mean, it happens sometimes that people want to share their uh, psychedelic journeys, but in my mind, like that's not whether you share it or not. That's not very important. Is like the where the uh, like empathy and compassion are strengthened is in the experience itself. Like the virtue in by virtue of having this sense of being connected to a greater being that you feel that we're all part of one being like that. That's
it.
the isn't
Monism,
that
monism, monism. Sorry. Um,
isn't
yes.
that the experience that
Well, yeah. I mean, what you're
inspires?
saying is a very spiritual experience, that you're having this psychedelic experience. Um, and the particular trip that was really the interrupter, really the break or the failure in the moment, still has rich material that we could pull from if we want to.
Yeah. So
I
what
could
if you
share that with you
succeeded?
in therapy or not.
Right. So if you succeed at firmness, like that's great. But if you fail at firmness, that's also great because then you may have a like a visionary experience that, yeah, exactly.
God wants me to tell the world. Um, which is, of course, the danger of the experience, but that's the danger whether you use psychedelics or not. Um, okay, so what I'm suggesting, a couple of minutes ago, is really that, let's say you come through the firmness and you pass to a flying color. Okay,
Okay.
maybe over a period of sessions, you pulled out of the room a little more often than later, and you got better and better at it, and so you really built a skill of firmness.
Okay.
You've even simultaneously compiled a whole bunch of notes on the times you fucked up. I would say, and just suggest that it might be that when you fucked up and you had those great experiences, that there might also be an underlying issue of, you fucked up, and that may alter or disturb the purity of those experiences to some degree, what might have been. Of course, you can't assume a base hit, even if, that, you know what I'm saying, even though you stole the base on the hitter, right, and got him out. Um,
I mean, if that's a concern though, Paul, like you can just take psychedelics like outside of the Santo Daime context and go as deep as you want. Like there's nothing saying like it has to be in a yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But where I wanted to go is because of the weakness, especially that hits the casual, social user in these experiences. The usual experience is disjointed. They don't really focus on anything, and they completely surrender the experience. It's kind of like they've got their mind open and they're not putting anything in. they're just putting in sensuality and they're enjoying their experience. They got a really cool psychedelic film on and they're fucking their girlfriend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So this is like a a less disciplined use of psychedelics,
yeah,
something with
that's
more
just- but was
improvised.
but a very common experience that a
Yeah.
lot of people had, right? And I had it when I was young too.
Yeah.
Um, As a matter of fact, one morning I got up and I had to ask her her name. We lived together for 5 years after that, man. She was my first black girl. Really cool. Anyway, um, yeah, here's the other side of that coin. So now you've succeeded, whether how long it took you a series of sessions or whether you showed a natural talent at firmness. Once you have that ability for firmness, and excuse me, you've been doing the Varela Schwartz exercise, probably in consultation or maybe by yourself, because you give plenty of instruction in that in the book.
What do you mean exercise? It's just like a
Well,
lens
you've
you
learned
can
the blending
look
and the
through.
unblending process, and you've dialogued yourself through it. I just got angry at my wife an hour ago. Okay, let me virilize myself. Right. And so you could do this. I can do this by myself, or if I'm not good at it so much right away, I might seek somebody like you to help
I mean
get me
that
started, or I might be
that
totally
sounds
dependent, right?
so. I'm just nitpicking your terminology. Like I feel like you're talking about either talk therapy or just like doing a self therapy kind of session. And I would
Of course.
keep Varela Short's like to the side. That's like a lens that we can use to analyze
So
waking
you don't
consciousness.
think
But
relish Schwartz is good for the individual to do by
well,
himself?
so I think you're for that. We're just talking about internal family systems, like the IFS side of it, the Schwartz side.
Oh,
In
I
the
thought
Varela
Varela
side,
Schwartz was the blending unblending. That was the Varela Schwartz technique.
well, so Schwartz is responsible for IFS. Richard Schwartz, and then Varela is that guy is Francis Varela, and his contribution is mutual constraints using seeing how you can transmit information between these different perspectives.
Okay, so does the technique have a name? Is this more a technique that you're
It's not so much
exploring
a
on your own as a bit of a, an
it's not so
original?
much a technique as like a an analytical tool that I use in the book. It's like analyzing certain practices, but um, like
So
in
this
terms
would
of
be
doing
part
part
of a
work, that's
larger practice of psychoanalysis. There are other techniques you might employ in more formal psychoanalysis.
well, in talk therapy, I'm just using internal family systems, which is the Schwartz side of the Varela-Schwartz model.
I'm trying to find out what blending unblending is. Does it have a name
Oh,
besides?
and that blending and unblending are part of IFS, a part of the Schwartz side of the model.
Oh, okay. So it's not the Varela Schwartz technique, it's the Schwartz technique.
For blending and unblending, yeah, you could say that.
Are you familiar with Mel Brooks' adaptation of Star Wars?
You mean Spaceballs?
Yes, baseball. May the
Yeah,
Schwartz
yeah,
be.
that was
May the
brilliant.
Schwartz.
Yeah, that was a brilliant
Come
movie.
on. I would be all over that group therapy.
Yeah, he definitely has a funny name, the Richard Schwartz. Like it's
Well,
like means penis in
the
like a bunch of
classic
different ways.
Jewish German name, it is what it is. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like the old song, Irving, the 257th fastest gun in the West. It's one of those things. Irving
Okay.
Schwartz. Irving Schwartz was his name. Um, so when you're Schwartzerizing somebody, um, this is the technique that gets mastered, and one can do that in consultation with you, or one can learn to do that on one's own. And maybe whether your book helps instruct them, or you could supplant that with any personal sessions that you may or may not design. Um, because I think you do something on the phone too, right? Like you offer phone counseling.
Sure. Or yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways you can work with a internal family systems therapist, or just learn it on your own. Like just read a book about it, and sure.
Okay, so um, I'm still captivated by um, the empathy, uh, and I guess my comment was crude. I'm not going to go there. Um, and I could go past these because and start talking chapter 7. You start talking about group work and psychedelics and conscious navigation skills, um, uh, training emotional skills, emotional intelligence, workplace, home, school. Um, can we apply the same technique that we're doing with our psychedelic imbibition? Can we apply that same technique, when the boss is busting your balls? Can we do that same technique when your wife is busting your balls? Because men are always innocent. Remember that, lady. Um, uh, while the teacher's getting on your case, whatever it is. Um, and you're in the heat of something that you will naturally bark to because mom can push your triggers, right? And
Yeah,
mom will get you. If she wants a good argument from you, she's going to get one.
yeah.
Um, so, how do you, can you, through this psychedelic technique, um, apply the Schwartz technique without the psychedelics? Can you, instead of the psychedelics, you're getting mom pushing your button?
Yeah, I mean that's a challenge as well. It's just um, uh, like the uh, like it's so we're just not measuring what's going on as accurately. Like you can't measure the challenge like when your mom is mad at you, like you are being challenged, but like how much? Like how do you quantify that? You can't really quantify it.
You
Um,
can't quantify, but there's no need to, except for the fact that you probably bark back or you curl into the corner like you always did, or I mean, how many people who were abused by their father, even though the father's old and frail in his bed, he knew just what to say to them and curl them up again, and they knew they could just smack him in the head.
yeah, but the contrast I'm making is like with firmness, the amount of challenge is measurable. Like you can measure how much of the psychedelic you're served, and that controls the level of challenge. Whereas in these
Well,
situations,
you're always
you are,
measuring it against yourself because 1 cup of psychedelic for you might be 3 cups for me, or a tenth of a cup, right?
well, yeah, but at least you have a number. Like you can reduce it to a number. So,
Yeah. So
um,
that's why I say in comparison with the self. How
yeah,
much can I
it's
consume of it?
relative to.
Doesn't matter. It's not relevant or relative to you at all, right? So that's an assessment of perhaps of capacity, right? But a developmental capacity, right? Uh, in my younger days, 2 drinks may have all that I needed to get a real good buzz. My later younger days when I've been doing that for a while, maybe now I want 4 drinks. Maybe I could do 4 drinks and half a pizza, and I'm still gonna win the hot dog contest. Oh, woe is me. I never won the hot dog contest, but um, yes, it's measurable in that specific instance, and we're going to a measure. But is the technique transferable to these other experiences? And
Well, I
would
mean
not that
that's the
measure?
argument. That's the
Go ahead.
argument that I make in my book, that it is the same technique, that you are testing the same ability, whether it's in the Santo Daime ceremony, or whether you're practicing meditation, or whether you're in an argument with your spouse. Like it's the same thing, that you're challenged to stay unblended when you're
Yeah, because you're going to have a response. You're going to have a
yeah,
response.
yeah,
And
like you're in a emotional, you're being emotionally challenged, and you have a propensity to become blended with the part that's triggered.
well, yeah, and the trigger itself is the blending, right? You become intimate with both the trigger and the blending that you're going on. They're both, well drilled as part of you already, right? Your mother turns around to you and says, "You always were just a lazy bum. Now look at you, no job." And there you are, going, "Oh, ma, come on, ma." Or maybe inside you're feeling, like you got a half an inch penis, and you're done. Um, so this thing goes on they're so interactive and over such a period of time. So as we develop the skill at the unblending, we can begin to unwind complexes that may be more automatic, part of that automatic consciousness that needs to be corrected. you
Yeah.
know uh, the zealotor also gets the knife. So he learns to cut out all those things that came into his panicle. He learns to cut out those ones that don't serve his central will.
Mm,
All those, events that influenced him, right?
sure.
Um, so um, you begin to get better at. Maybe I'm coming to you for therapy. You show me how to begin to unblend from what Ma did, and we start to have a series of things because I'm in college and I have to pick up food every Friday night, right? So I got to deal with this, and I'll never stay the weekend. So now we've worked it up that like I'm handling Friday, and I'm getting better at not snapping back, not doing the homage, or not crawling into a corner. Um, and now we're starting to expand. Can I do that for 2 nights? Why don't I stay on Friday night through Saturday night, leave Sunday morning instead? Um, and how long can I handle her abuse? Um, and the psychology. And I would say that these are strong complexes for the spiritual student. And sometimes they're buried deep. Things we've forgotten. I suffered some real serious abuse that today would have gotten half the school system, thrown out of school, and half the teachers fired for what was routinely done in my generation. It was just shit I had to take. And it was very, very excruciatingly painful for me. And I put it off. I managed as I got into college, and people started being nice to me, and all this. I realized, it wasn't me, and I indulged in enjoying people, and I really enjoyed it, and forgot all about that other shit. And I'd say I fairly, even though I was kind of with the underground kids, I had a fairly healthy relationship with people. I always attract losers in women, but that's another story and maybe connected. Um, it wasn't until I started sitting down to meditation and started getting to that open mind that's starting at first appearing unfilled, and then shit came up that I remembered all this. And I went into a deep depression that led me through different psychological counseling experiences. I tried a couple of privates, I tried in different styles, I tried a couple of groups, et cetera, et cetera. And um, I would have liked in these experiences to have had the opportunity to unblend. Um, two uh, two men that I saw, I found to be profound. This one woman I saw I really liked a lot, but she was really, because she was also my group leader. She was really into that. What's that behavioral control one? ICB.
CBT,
Yeah, CBT.
cognitive behavioral therapy.
or the stock exchange. Um, yes, because I hate behavioral therapy, right? It doesn't address the problem, it just goes right to the symptom and makes
Yeah.
you force you to change the symptom, which I think just makes the problem go somewhere worse. Um, but I really liked her because she was really cute and she was dating a man much older than her, and we were the same age. So I kind of wanted to score if I could. That was the whole part of it. I was dealing with all of that. Um,
Yeah.
uh, so I struck the friendship, and because she wasn't really doing anything for me, and there was always one woman in the group therapy, all the attention had to go to her every session, and she, all she could do was say, "Well, how's that affecting you?" It's making me not want to show up because I'm getting nothing done. I want to give and I want to take.
Yeah.
Uh, so I didn't stay there too much longer, and really I didn't see the other two guys for that long either. I got to the point, because she got me on the psychiatric medications, and I got to the point where I couldn't put a glass of water in my mouth. And she was ready to get me a third medication, and I just cold turkey off all that shit. I'm fine. And you know something, I really was. I learned to forgive myself for my stupidities. If I went out and did coke and hung out all night, that's okay. I had nothing better to do anyway. And why? I forgive myself, and then I'll get back to work this morning. And I go back to do my writing, and sometimes I fucked up with my job. I was still doing bad there. Um, but I got it together as I learned to forgive myself and focus more and more on my real work, my spirituality, and brought into that. I learned to look away from it, and it became a Friday night thing because we can be a long time. I got to tell you.